Have you ever opened the Quran and seen these incredible, beautiful, and, well, mysterious letters at the start of a chapter? For centuries, they've been one of its biggest puzzles. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating linguistic theory that might, just might, finally crack the code.
I mean, think about it. For over 1,400 years, people have been debating what these letters mean. Take these two right here, ha and mim. Are they some kind of divine secret, a code that only God is supposed to know? For a long time, that's been the main belief. But what if the answer has been hiding in plain sight this whole time?
Okay, so these letters, they have a formal name, al-huruf al-mukatta'ah, or the disconnected letters. You'll find them at the beginning of 29 different chapters. But to really get why they're such a puzzle, you first have to understand the book they show up in.
The Quran talks about itself in a very specific way. It calls itself a mighty book that falsehood cannot approach. It says its verses are perfected and then detailed, and that it's an Arabic Quran for a people who know. It hammers home this idea of clarity, of being protected. So you see the tension here, right? Why would a book that prides itself on being so clear start its chapters with a completely unknowable mystery?
So, how did people square that circle? How did they explain this apparent contradiction for all those centuries? Well, the traditional answer really came down to one key idea.
See, the Quran itself says it has two types of verses. First, you've got the muhkimat. These are the verses that are totally clear, firmly established. Then you have the mutashabihat, the ones that are ambiguous or allegorical. And for centuries, most scholars just put these disconnected letters right into that second bucket.
And this verse is exactly why. The book says, flat out, that when it comes to those ambiguous verses, no one knows the interpretation except Allah. For many, that was it. Case closed. The letters are a divine secret, a test of our faith. They're not for us to understand. End of story. Or is it?
This is where the whole thing takes a really sharp turn, because the strongest piece of evidence against that unknowable theory comes from the very first people who ever heard these verses recited. So here's the standoff. On one side, you have the theory that the letters are a deep mystery. But on the other, you have this stubborn historical fact. The people of Mecca, who were skeptical of everything and challenged the prophet on almost every verse, they never, not once, asked, hey, what does ha-mim even mean? And that question is the key that unlocks this whole thing. This was a tough crowd. They questioned everything. If someone started reciting letters that sounded like pure nonsense, wouldn't that have been the very first thing they'd mock? The fact that they didn't, their silence is deafening. It suggests something really profound. Maybe it wasn't a mystery to them at all. Maybe they actually understood it. And that thought opens up a completely new door. It leads to an explanation that isn't about theology or divine secrets, but about the very history of language itself. This theory argues that to get what these letters mean, you have to go way, way back. Back to the very first alphabets that we know of, discovered over in the Sinai. In those ancient systems, letters weren't just abstract sounds. They were pictures. They were symbols of real things, and their names actually carried their original meaning. Just check this out. It's so cool. The letter Ayn is still kind of drawn like an eye, and its name, Ayn, literally means eye. The letter Kaf started as a drawing of a palm, and its name means palm. And Mim, it began as a hieroglyph for water, and its name is tied to the ancient word for water, ma. The meaning is baked right into the name of the letter itself.
Okay, so now we have this new linguistic key. Let's take it back to our main puzzle, ha-mim. What happens when we look at it through this new lens?
And here it is. This is the heart of the theory. The prophet's audience in Mecca, they didn't hear the letter ha and the letter mim. No. They heard those sounds spoken together, and it formed a real, authentic Arabic word they already knew, hamim. And this is where it gets really fascinating. The word hamim in classical Arabic has two totally opposite meanings. It can mean a close, intimate friend, which represents mercy, or it can mean scorching, boiling water, which represents punishment. It holds both of these extremes in one single word. But we can go even deeper. Back to those ancient picture letters. The letter He comes from the ancient Semitic word height, which means wall, and the letter Mim, as we just saw, comes from Ma, meaning water. So when you put them together, Hamim literally paints a picture with sounds, a wall between waters, a divider. And what is a wall or a divider?
It's a perfect physical metaphor for a huge concept in the Quran: Furqan. A Furqan is a criterion. It's something that distinguishes, that separates truth from falsehood, right from wrong, mercy from punishment. So the word Hamim contains both ideas, and the very letters it's made from create a picture of that separation. It all just clicks into place.
So, let's just step back and look at what this all means. We've gone from a supposed divine secret all the way to a linguistic signpost. Let's pull all these threads together. So here's the big takeaway. Hamim isn't a mystical code. It's a tool. It's a heads up. When the first listeners heard Hamim, they understood it as criterion. It was like a bell ringing, telling them, hey, pay attention. What I'm about to say is a standard for judgment. It's going to draw a clear line between mercy and punishment. And this theory also perfectly explains that historical shift we talked about. The original audience heard one word, Hamim, and they got it, no problem. But then, generations later, a famous scholar like Ibn Abbas encounters it mainly in written form. He sees two separate letters on the page, Ha and Mim, and he pauses. The connection was lost. The clear spoken word had become a written puzzle. This whole journey from a divine mystery to a forgotten word really leaves you with a powerful thought. It shows how the simple shift from a spoken oral culture to a written one can completely hide meanings that were once obvious. And it just makes you wonder, what other secrets are locked away in ancient texts, not behind some mystical veil, but just waiting for us to learn how to listen to them the way they were first spoken?